Hello, I'm Katie Bavoso from the Channel Company. You've heard the old saying, time is money. That holds true when a business is hit with a cyber attack. It stalls productivity, and downtime is literally money lost. Ransomware attacks cost U.S. governments, healthcare providers, and educational establishments a collective $7.5 billion in 2019. Here to help you figure out the best cybersecurity solutions for your customers is security analyst of Carbonite and Webroot at OpenText, Tyler Moffitt. Tyler, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here, Tyler. Let's jump right in. What is the biggest mistake businesses make in their cybersecurity approach?
Probably the biggest one is going to be the set it and forget it mentality with endpoint protection. A lot of the assumptions are that get endpoint protection, rely on endpoint for pretty much a lot of the things. And really that's not. There's a much bigger picture now. And honestly, individual habits are really big. Education is absolutely paramount. And that is different than actual endpoint protection. But also lack of budget allocation is another really big one.
What solutions make up Webroot's layered cybersecurity approach? And how does this approach better protect businesses and make security management easier for MSPs?
Endpoint, the most obvious, probably the most effective layer. That's stopping usually files on the actual disk once they encounter the threats, right? But beyond that, you have stuff you can do before that. Education is a really big one, absolutely paramount. We found that if you educate your employees only like a few times a year, about 37% of the employees will click on and enter their information with phishing links. But if you educate them to at least once a month or have phishing simulation, where we send out phishing simulation, once a month, you can reduce that by 70% to around 10%, which is much better. And then from there, what other layers can you help out? So another big one is DNS, URL and IP protection, right? Being able to protect it right then and there at the URL and IP, which is again, technically separate from the endpoint. So when a user fails and clicks on a phishing link that they shouldn't have clicked on, they're actually trying to resolve a URL or an IP. And if you have a reputation layer there, that can stop a good percentage of threats, most threats right then and there, before it ever reaches the endpoint.
You were just talking about this, Tyler, but one of those security layers is end user education on the risk clients and their employees pose to the network. Why is that so important to invest in? Aren't they already protected enough by the cybersecurity solutions themselves?
Right. So education is important, not just for the individual user, which we talked about with percentages and how likely they are to fall for it. With a little education, with a lot of education, obviously you can reduce it down a lot. But also education for the IT admins is actually very important. A lot of attacks or breaches that happen aren't just from a user clicking on something. That's most, but a lot can happen through insecure environment, back doors literally being open for people to come in, brute forcing RDP. And so we have education courses specifically for IT admins as well, so they can set up their environment as best as possible to make sure that things like that are taken care of.
And Tyler, while being protected is so important, we gotta talk money. What's the return on investment on all this layered security? In other words, how do partners benefit financially?
Having this comprehensive solution, and this, honestly, I would say cyber resilience strategy is going to be huge as far as your organization. The amount of ransoms being charged now will literally destroy your business in many cases. For small to medium-sized businesses, the average ransom amount at the end of September was $233,000. So the average small business, that is a death sentence. In many cases, they have to close up shop if they are hit with ransom. So when I said earlier, increasing your budgets, it's very important to increase your budgets to make sure that you have this in place, because if you have the right security posture and cyber resilience in place, the threat posed is much reduced, where you likely won't have to encounter that.
Tyler, thank you so much for taking the time to explain why a layered security approach from Webroot is an optimal way to protect customers. And thank you at home for joining us, but stay tuned. Tyler will be back to discuss phishing attacks and how to better avoid them. I'm Katie Bavoso. Thanks for watching.